Welcome back to the first, the last, the Nerdum, the podcast where we explore the first, the last, and everything in between across film, television, and pop culture. And once again, it's time for one of our favorite deep dives, binge worthy? Question mark. The mission is simple. We pick a TV show we've been curious about or are revisiting, watch the first three episodes, and decide whether it earns a full-on binge or gets left drifting off into space. This week, we're jumping into the early 2000s science fiction reboot that redefined what TV sci-fi could be. Battlestar Galactica, grittier, darker, and more politically charged than its predecessor. This series drops shiny space optimism in favor of handheld cameras, moral ambiguity, and a relentless sense of survival. Set after the near extinction of humanity, Battlestar Galactica follows the last remnants of civilization on the run from those evil Cylons, machines that look human and may already be hiding among the fleet. The first three episodes waste no time establishing the stakes, the paranoia, and the emotional weight that would come to define the series. We'll be talking about whether the reboot still holds up, how those opening episodes hook the audience, and whether the show's blend of action, philosophy, and character drama makes it truly binge worthy in today's streaming landscape. So say the oath, so say we all. Check your airlock and keep an eye on everyone around you because you never know who's a Cylon. This is binge worthy. This is the first, the last, and nerdum. And this week we're jumping light speed with Battlestar Galactica. Light speed, is that right? I don't know.
Nah,
Billy jump with
well, well, whatever.
close enough.
Actually,
Actually, so yeah.
yeah. No, that's a great intro. You did far better than I did. So, bravo, bravo, bravo. Yeah. Yeah. So, no, we are the first listener. I'm not going to spend too much time here. Just plug in the thing. You can find us on our ever changing, growing website that's actually up, the firstlastnerdum.com. As always, home base on YouTube, First Last Nerdum. As well as Reddit. But Tom is gonna take it away, Tom.
Why, yes, I'm there as first, last, nerdum. If you've come over from Reddit, hello. But I promote our stuff there on any subreddit that will have me. I'm also on X under also first, last, nerdum. So if you want to keep up to date on our latest videos, you can subscribe to me or follow me there, and I'll post when our new video hits live or soon after it hits live. So yep, and I think you have some social media as well.
I do. I too am on X with you, where we occasionally have a conversation here, there, a little back and forth at Suffoking Jewish underscore. And as we go into this, yeah. So this one is one that I thought that we would eventually get to. But again, in our first couple of years, we kind of played it safe, and like we stayed away from the big shiny stuff of nerddom, big rocks of nerddom, as they are. And this one is one I can say, I'm more of an outsider than an insider to this one. Um, like I came to appreciate. I did watch this when it was on, and but I didn't. I wish I would have appreciated it more. I guess is the into this conversation. So I do remember this. I also remember the follow up series. I was in love with the Sci-Fi Channel for a long time. Like they had just really good content for a long period of time. Nothing that was like, a world, amazing or award winning, but, very satisfactory to being a nerd back at that point in time. But
Right.
um, they had a follow up to this, which was like that followed them. I can't remember the name. I'll look it up here in a minute. But
Caprica.
yeah, Caprica. Yeah. That was the Academy one. And then it was like the kind of a little bit different, like a different kind of take on like their world, and like how that, anyway. I actually like that one. Like but of course, I think that one only went for like one or two seasons, like if that.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I could appreciate that. And then I kind of got to appreciate my appreciation for it grew after the fact. So, how about you, Tom? And then, of course, like I was a kid and I was a baby in the '80s. Wasn't until the late '80s, early '90s that I, knew a damn thing. But I did kind of see the TV show one occasionally. I thought it was more kitschy than anything. I kind of ignored it than anything else. But no, not to say that's a bad thing. It just wasn't my jam back then when I was a kid. I was more like TOS, Star Trek, whatever. But anyway, Tom, I'll pass it back to you. I'm fascinated because you picked this week's Battlestar Galactica. So I think it means maybe what does that mean to you, and what's your history background with it?
Why, yes. Yeah. So you're the just uh, uh get everybody up to speed. I'm more of the horror fantasy guy, and Mike's more of the sci-fi guy. So you would think Battlestar Galactica would mainly come from Mike, but this is my my jam. As far as sci-fi, there's a certain sci-fi that resonate with me. Obviously, I'm the a child of the '70s. A huge Star Wars fan, like every child from the '70s is, for the most part. I knew a kid, one of my best friends growing up in the '70s hated Star Wars, which was the bane of my existence because yeah, how can you have a best friend that hates Star Wars? So yeah, it was kind of got odd, but yeah, so obviously I was very excited about sci-fi because of Star Wars and also I was in love with Star Trek, the original series, obviously, and that's probably where some of the horror came in because surprisingly, the original Star Trek had a lot of horrific episodes, and but then there's also Battlestar Galactica, and I fell in love with that as a child. So when this reboot or reimagining, they like to call it reimagining it when it first came out. This reboot of Battlestar that came during the 2000s. I was very excited initially. I was like, "Oh wow, they're bringing back Battlestar," but we did have the internet back then, and things started to come out about this new reimagining. Starbuck gasp was a woman. There was uh yeah, the Cylons were also going to look like humans. What? No, this isn't this hashtag not my Battlestar, and also with Starbuck, not hashtag not my Starbuck. But yeah, the whole controversy of internet drama was yeah actually happened before internet drama. I remember
Right.
back in the day when the Batman movie came out, Michael Keaton was going to be Batman. Everybody was a gasp. Oh my gosh, how could this happen? But the thing about those things is when they come out and they prove their point and like they have solid writing, they win you over. Who has a problem with Michael Keaton now as Batman? No one. But so when this Battlestar came out, I was a bit hesitant about it. I'd heard of these things. I was like, okay, will I like this? Will I won't? But I still watched it. That was the thing back then. Like we still watch the things because there were so few things that would come out that you potentially might like. There wasn't like the smorgasbord of everything you could watch in the world coming out at you weekly now, so that you can ignore these things. But yeah, Battlestar was a big deal for sci-fi nerds, and since I had this history with it, I had to see what was going on. Much like I checked out Next Generation when that came out because like, oh, new Star Trek, I gotta check it out. So when I watched it, I think that first scene with Starbuck won me over to her character and to the series. Is like, okay, we're in good hands. There's some solid writing here. Also, I want to point out, and I wanted to ask you, Mike, with this, there's the initial mini series and then the first season with their 3 episodes. I was looking online and there's a lot of them just start with that first season. They don't have the mini series. Did you what all did you watch? Because I watched the mini series plus the three
Yeah, that's what
episodes.
I did. I did as well. Yeah, I realized like after the fact because I just went and watched the first 3 episodes of like season one, 2, and then I was like, oh yeah, hold on, wait, no, this was like This is like a far count encounter at far point two, like a clear movie like where they set it up and you get to kick off and you get Adam, damn it,
Adama, yeah.
Adama, excuse me,
Adama,
yeah,
yeah.
Adama and Starbuck, and there are two characters in this film that like just are just the acting is so fucking good. Like I am a Trekkie by nature. Like that's where I start from, and I this is why I regret. I wish I would have paid attention and I was dialed into this for so much more because you have Patricia Helfer, you have all these wonderful people, and Ronald Moore, obviously. Anyway, and the other thing too is like I this is like one like where I enjoyed it after that. At one point in time, this is very rare for me, but I actually did have like I didn't have all of them, but I had like the first two seasons on Blu-ray or whatever, like when I could, because I remember that stupid Cylon, kind of metal clunky kind of fuck out of, and one of them had that anyway. But so anyway, I remember this, and like when I did get to watch it, I was like, oh man, why didn't I watch this more? Like I just for whatever reason, it just wasn't on my radar. I was more in the. I think back then I was more in the Stargate. I was showing up to Stargate wherever I could find it,
Mhm.
and I knew about this one, but like I was just like, oh, that's the other show. That's the show for the other nerds. Like let and the other pot of nerds for kind of space based kind of operatic ones is the other one that people love. It's all CGI or whatever. Anyway, that happened around the same era. But anyway, Battlestar Galactica. Yeah, this was like a special treat. So I did. I actually what typically like in these binge worthy question mark we will watch the first few, and if it's really compelling we will just continue on like and we won't tell each other like that or whatever, like we'll just
Right.
that'll just be the natural thing. So this was absolutely I really enjoyed this last week too. Like enjoying like the spare downtime, like I have
Uh-huh.
something I can watch. And like god, I just adore that. And like when you get into it you realize it's not it's so deeper than fight Terminator in space. No, it's not like that at all. Like not with this. And you kind of just you hop from you see the building of it, and like every actor and actress that was in this was just did such a great job.
Yeah, and
They
they
took it seriously and you believed it with them. And normally I would like not like the kind of shaky kind of camera. It has a kind of like, I don't know what you call it, but like a style,
Mhm.
and it's kind of it's to enhance the frenetic, kind of energetic kind of thing, and it works. Like
Yeah.
I do remember that when I did watch it, I always remember that because it just had a kind
Mhm.
of a unique way of like
Yeah.
how it did the cuts and things, and I remember that very much. So anyway, so I very much enjoyed this past week. So anyway, I'll quit pontificating over the thing and actually get into the thing. Like the first few, the mini series sets it up. You kind of set this up. The where's my notes here? Sorry. You think that like the old one, they battled them, they're gone, they're done, and oh nope, that's not the case. You had this, we live across the 12 colonies and da 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 da, and we fought a war against them, and we created them to serve us, but in the end,
Mhm.
they vanished, and
Mhm.
well, we're great, we're safe. No, that's not the case.
Yeah, they were doing things, on downtime, but yeah, no, talking about the handheld nature of it, it's almost like, it's almost Homicide: Life on the Street in Space, you know? It's, very documentary style, it's very intentionally documentary style.
That's true.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's, Ronald D. Moore and the other, creator, David Icke. They were very much cognizant of wanting it to feel real, that there's not a barrier between the audience and what's going on. They wanted that documentary, and they, even in the space battles, there's a great scene at the beginning where they they blow up the space station, and a bit of debris heads towards the camera. It hits the camera and knocks it silly, you know. Even the special effects people had that agenda of making it almost like someone's filming it in space, these space scenes, which is just absolutely awesome. But yeah, so just to kind of set up their intention on the show, I did watch or listen to some of the commentary, and also did that with previously, because I'm like I said, I nerded out on this show, whereas Mike kind of just watched it from the sidelines. I was deep into Battlestar and
See,
like that.
I'll say this. I'll ask you this question as a follow up,
Uh,
but I before I forget. But I would say the style that they did, like that kind of thing, was replicated in other series that took from
yeah,
it,
yeah.
like The Expanse, that's relevant to
Mhm,
today as it is
uh-huh,
today, just as this is today.
mhm,
Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to mention that in the
yeah.
passing, like because you hit the nail on the head. It is that documentary, that real feel to it, and you get pulled in, and then you kind of anyway. Go on. Sorry.
But now the writers, and the creators, showrunners for this, Ronald D. Moore and David Dick, they came from Star Trek. They worked heavily on Deep Space Nine as writers, and so this was sort of like their anti Star Trek. they they wanted to do something different. They didn't want to with Star Trek. It was very kind of there was a separation. You knew you were watching a show on Star Trek. They were doing their thing. It wasn't anything against Star Trek, but they just wanted to do something different. Whereas, there was kind of barrier between the audience. You knew you were watching a show. They wanted to get it really handheld and really in your face, and and also there's a very clean and almost unlived in nature to Star Trek. Everything was clean,
Right.
the outfits were clean.
Procedural.
Yeah.
Well, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted to get it dirty and grimy, and you wanted to, like, feel like you're living in this ship, you know?
That reminds me, Red Letter Media. I was watching one of their rewatch reviews on the newer Star Trek or whatever. Anyway, they covered it. They mentioned that like the old Star Trek and TNG and Deep Space. They were talking about Deep Space Nine, and they were talking about how like the dialogue is not of that era, of that time. They didn't talk
Yeah,
like in the
yeah,
'60s. Kirk wasn't talking to like a "Hey, Jive Turkey, hey man."
yeah,
It was like the dialogue was different, and it was akin to the world that was in. It wasn't trying to be my buddy or my friend, which
right.
apparently I'm oblivious to most new things unless it's on the docket where unless my kiddos are talking about it, watching it, or some other thing, or you or me, like I don't, I'm not into the thing. This is why, like they knew how to take the sci-fi and and the level of disc like it's so elevated from what the TV show was. See, I think I didn't like this or I thought I didn't like this because like I kind of saw the TV one as kind of like probably as how a normie would see the TOS. They probably see the 60s and they it might be a little bit higher than Batman, but they probably thought it was like the kapow, kind of a cartoony thing, I guess, but that's not this at all. This is very serious. It's dark. It's grim, but there
Yeah,
is a little bit of hope. It's not like dystop. Yeah, it's hard, but like there's still glimmers of hope. And also, I don't know about you, but like I don't know how many times I've seen the series personally, but probably not as much as you. But like I've seen it a few times. But like the film or excuse me the sound score too was very good for this as well. I just want to say that too.
yeah, yeah, and
That
they didn't want, that kind of normally in a space opera, you'd have these big bombastic, score, obviously inspired by Star Wars and John Williams, but, they wanted kind of minimalistic, much like the show, where it's a lot of drum beats and a lot of tribal kinda sounding things, which really makes it distinctive. When you hear those drums, it smells sorry. Oh, yeah, yeah, that's it. You're kinda dialed in, but also, Also, like you were saying, the dialogue, they wanted it to be kind of, since it's not Earth. All the references are not tied to the past of Earth. It's all new, and even their curse words are different, frack and whatnot.
Oh, yeah, I remember that too, yeah, yeah.
But they didn't want to completely detach it from reality, and have these hokey sci-fi words that you can't relate. So
Right.
when they needed to have that impact, like the person that becomes the president, she has cancer, and whenever there's like a big explosion, it's a nuclear explosion. They wanted that impact of, when you say cancer, that triggers you, it pulls in all those emotions. Whereas if they had made up some weird space disease, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. There would still be that barrier. They wanted you close to everything. And also, one of the things that they learned from from Star Trek, and they did that, they wanted to loosen up, is the writer was keying on Star Trek. You had to go by the dialogue. If you were directing an episode of Star Trek and the actors knew, you had to say the words that were on the page. And if you went beyond that, if you wanted ad lib, you had to have a damn sure good reason to do that. It had to go upstairs to the writers to okay the ad lib. So that kind of locked things down. And it did make for, you could do like a 60-page script for Star Trek within that 40-minute time window. So they thought they could get away with it with Battlestar, but one of the things that they learned was, with Battlestar, they wanted to loosen everything up, and the actors had input. So I think that's what really makes this a bit different, because all the characters feel lived into it, because the actors really could breathe and make them unique in and of themselves. And and the fact that they could breathe with the dialogue, it made the scenes kind of linger a little bit, so that whenever they were filming it, 60 pages was 60 minutes or more. So when they got done with the miniseries, they had like an hour of footage that they had to trim out of it because they went over.
Trisha
Um,
Helfer, excuse me.
Trisha Helfer. One thing I'll point out about her: a lot of these actors are great in it, like Trisha, but they're first time actors. Like, she only had done like one episode of another series, and she was a bit player. She's mostly a model.
No,
So this
I
was
was gonna say, you're right,
yeah,
yep, that's
yeah.
right, yeah,
This is
Kitty.
her yeah, but yeah, this is her big role, and she really pulls it together. Same with Grace Park, who plays Boomer. She was a first time actor, and the guy that plays Hilo, I forget his name. That is kind of a minor character in the miniseries, but comes back for the series because he's left on Caprica. He made such an impression on them during the miniseries, like, we got to bring this guy back. We got to find a way to bring him back. And then, yeah, one of my favorite characters, Starbuck, Katie Sackhoff, she's amazing in it. She's so unique. Her character is so unique. You would normally see that as a male character, and she completely pulls it off without being a male character, and kind of having the feminine energy of who she is, but also playing off the stereotypical kind of male role. It kind of creates a whole new character. People like her from from real life, but you don't normally see that kind of character on the screen, especially not in like a sci-fi show. And that's another thing. A lot of the drama in the show is not unique for like regular drama series, but it was unique at the time for a sci-fi series. You really didn't get into like these nitty gritty kind of emotional scenes, and they really let, like I said, the people kind of ad lib the first scene with Admiral Adama, and his second in command, his XO, Saul Tigh. They're they're having the conversation, and Adama's getting dressed and whatnot. And actually, they did film because Edward almost he wanted to do start the scene where he's on the toilet. They really wanted to kind of really make it, and they kind of filmed it that way, and then they realized, yeah, maybe not. but, uh, but they really let the characters kind of breathe and kind of find their way. Um, they were talking about James Callis, who plays Baltar. They when they wrote the character, they knew he was kind of be that questionable morality to him and kind of that interesting play. But the thing that they didn't realize, that the actor brought to it, was the sheer comedy and the charm, that he could bring to the role. And it really and if Starbucks my favorite character, he's definitely my second favorite. Baltar is really wins you over, even though he's this despicable character that makes bad decision after bad decision, or maybe the amoral decision every time. But you can't help but love him, you know. He's just one of those characters that really win you over, even though he's up to no good.
No, absolutely. Katie Sackhoff, Trisha Helfer, like I said, mentioned, James Bambler, also. I mean,
Bamber, yeah.
yeah, yeah. The one thing I watched and follow some of these people on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
Not all of their things, but like occasionally I'll find a clip here or there. Like if I'm in a Battlestar mood, and like I'll go through a bunch of YouTube videos that are, side notes here or there, endlessly entertaining. And she had mentioned that she had to dye her hair a certain kind of color blonde for
Uh-huh.
the role, and it was so chemically treated up to a certain point, like, chunks of her hair were, like, falling out,
I know.
like, toward the very end, and, like, they had to, like, do things to, like, make her hair, but essentially, she said that, like, she started with, like, full head of hair, and then, like, as it got on and it continued, it, got a little it got very, very bad for her anyway.
Right.
But you see that, and then Katie Sackhoff, of course, she is a very treasured sci-fi fan. We love
Fan
her,
favorite,
and
yeah.
many, yeah, fan. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, some of these, like, it was their first at bat, and they did a very good job. There's such depth and layer to the show, because you just didn't know kind of like what you were getting into. Even if you were familiar with the show, they were essentially, because the where you started with and where you progressed was a hell of a storyline, which is
Yeah.
just really great.
Yeah, and I think that Battlestar, the reason why it works, and especially with fans of Battlestar, even ones, from the '80s, they didn't they were reimagining or rebooting, and they had their own story to tell, but they weren't giving a middle finger to the original property. Whereas today, a lot of times you kind of feel, even if that's not their intention, that's how it feels. They're kind of like saying "f you" to the fans of the original, saying this isn't your whatever property that you want. This is our time. This is what we're doing. Whereas this one, they were doing something different, but they still wanted to have those emotional ties. They still wanted to pull in those old fans, like with the Vipers, the space jets. They wanted they intentionally made them look like the original ones. They wanted that emotional tie. And in fact, with the Battlestar, it looks similar to the old Battlestar Galactica. The creators of the show wanted it to look more like it, whereas the studio or the channel wanted it completely different. They wanted it completely different looking, and they wanted it to be more traditional, where they kind of met in the middle. They did change it up a little bit, but it's still recognizable. So they still wanted those emotional, at least that look. They wanted that tie to the original one, and then there's also a lot of Easter eggs, like they're whereas that's the start of the war between the Cylons and the humans, and they also add in the elements that the humans created the Cylons with the series. But they, in this one, it's 20 years later. So, and, obviously, 20 years from the original one as well. So they wanted the look of the Cylons from 20 years ago to look like the old Cylons. So they wanted to have all those little Easter eggs to please the old fans. Uh, at the same time, they're telling their stories, their ideas. They're doing their own thing. And also the scene where Starbuck gets introduced, in that
Jesus
gambling
Christ.
scene. um when the Starbuck is introduced in the original show, he's gambling as well. So they wanted to have that synchronicity, but they also wanted to say, okay, well, that was the rogue pilot from, the from the 80s, whereas this is our rogue pilot. She's different. But she does still have a little bit of the same flavor, but she, she goes there. She gets in a fight with her commanding officer. She does her own thing. So I really like the aspect of paying homage, but then also telling their own story, which I think they lose that with a lot of the reboots or reimagining or retelling or making their own stories nowadays. They don't appreciate or even watched the previous iterations of what they're going on. So the legacy is severed. There's not that connection. So it's like you should probably just create your own thing, but then no one would watch it or check it out. You have to tie it to this thing that it's no longer a part of. Whereas this has that legacy feel to it.
Yeah, you have to. Well, they did. There's it's a good balance, and God help us. Like the fandom will tell you
Yeah,
if you don't strike
absolutely.
that balance. And this was one I don't remember hearing any negative thing about this when it was on. Really, honestly,
Right.
um,
Right.
you're
Well,
cracking
and
open
even
one.
though we had those initial complaints about it, it wins you over. Yeah,
Yeah,
by the solid writing, the solid acting, they prove their case. They go, okay, we're doing a female Starbuck. Oh well, I don't like that. Well, here's our Starbuck. Okay, yeah, okay, you won me over. Yeah, yeah, we got you.
and there's a difference between like taking a plot point of like all of a sudden like we thought we were at peace, and then the Cylons come back and like, essentially they nuke every colony, planet wide, which is which if you're a sci-fi nerd of any kind, you already accept anyway because like that's possible, right? So like you're kicking off, so like you have a fresh point to kick off from, but you also have like wow, we got these old rust buckets from the old show that we
Yeah.
have to deal with because you are already have a finite because humanity has become a finite thing, and what that means and what it means to be human. Anyway, I love how this like this is such a very adult, sophisticated way to explore that topic than say like to be honest, being fair, TNG with Data might be a little bit more adolescent. Maybe it's not quite
Right.
as sophisticated. Let's just say that.
Right.
Like, it's not bad. It's just different.
Yeah, they're telling different stories.
Right. Well, and you have different levels of like what it means to be a Cylon, right? As you understand that, and as you get into it, you get to anyway. I'm not going to wax too poetic because we're not there yet, but
Yeah, that number 7 has her god and her beliefs and whatnot, which
exactly.
are kind of fascinating. Yeah, so another thing to kind of set the stage for it, Ronald D. Moore and the other guy, David Icke, they you got to remember that this is the miniseries came out in 2003, regular series comes out in 2004. We're fresh off of 9/11. This has a huge impact on this series, huge.
That is true. That is very true.
The miniseries is sort of an allegory of 9/11 and our reactions and trying to be as real as possible, because those emotions are still real and really built into us, and we're maybe not ready to deal with 9/11 at that time. But this show, that's the great thing about sci-fi, is you could tell this huge story about this massive destruction, but be kind of a step away from it, but still deal with the emotion of it. That's wonderful thing about sci-fi, that you could deal with these emotions that maybe you're not really ready to deal with emotionally in real life, but you could kind of, vicariously kind of go through them in a sci-fi, and maybe even heal through through it, oddly enough. But yeah, it starts off with a time of peace. Everybody is kind of, and they're retiring this hunk of junk, Battlestar Galactica, along with Commander Adama. This He's going to be retiring, kind of stepping down and getting back into.
Come on, old war. Come on for one more, one last shot. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is the Galactica is going to be turned into a museum, and they're kind of
Peace. Right.
right, yeah. So there's all those emotions of uh, getting everybody's sort of getting ready to move on to the next stage of life, and in fact, the Madam President that becomes president, she's finds out she has cancer, and she's kind of dealing with her own emotional deal. She's she's more or less in her head about dying and everything, let alone becoming the next president. The fact that this happens and she has to step up to a position that she's never had to deal with. That's some meaty kind of emotional and dramatic stuff. They really build in. A lot of times with sci-fi, you don't really have these interesting backstories of the characters. They're there to facilitate the plot. The plot is more the focus, and the story is the more the focus, whereas this has a very engaging and interesting story, but you also have these fascinating characters with these emotional underpinnings. The XO is sort of this functional drunk, and he's having to deal with his alcoholism, as well as kind of he's kind of, you could tell he's kind of just playing by the numbers at this point. He's counting his days. He's recently, his wife has left him, and he's kind of this emotional wreck. In no place is he ready to take command, but he has to step up. There's a scene early on where he has to make a life that's or death decision for 80 people. He has to decide whether or not he's going to make the hard call, and he steps up, and it's the emotional impact from that. And also, he's also dealing with, since he is a alcoholic drunk, it's hard to hide that. So all the people he works with knows it, and they kind of tolerate him, but they don't like him. They know he's not really ready to lead, or they think he doesn't. Um so yeah, there's all those interesting dynamics of questioning authority, yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I completely forgot about 9/11. Like, that
Yeah.
that's very, very true because, you have, like,
Mhm.
by the 3rd episode, you've got, essentially we've been jumping every, half hour or whatever for 5 days straight, like,
Uh,
everybody's slowly breaking down is essentially what's going on, and then it's like, "How are we gonna solve this?" And from the get-go, anybody who's kinda the other thing, I'm not gonna go into too many back and forths or whatever, but, like, when the tension or the drama of football is thrown to somebody, like, they gotta kinda catch it and, like, run with it,
mhm.
and you that's what you're essentially getting, and it's very good, and by the 3rd episode, you have such an intensity that is, movies, really good movies that have won awards have not achieved that. I'll just put that way, in my opinion. I mean, very humble opinion.
Right. Yeah.
Um, anyway, it works very well, and they do that very well. Like, that's just one mini story of that. And I'm not in charge of the IMDb thing, but I gotta say, whoever whoever's in charge of, like, what pictures come first for the, photo section of Battlestar, just the whole thing, like, they really, really love Katie Sackhoff. So, anyway, so, like, if you've been seeing me scroll through the things, like, normally it's not grouped so heavy toward, like, one side. It's, like, whatever, but there's, like, 1,000 pictures in this direct anyway, so,
Yeah. I
anyway,
ain't
hard it's hard to say, "Look, I'm not complaining, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it's not." it's not me just like picking my favorite, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I gotcha. Yeah, I don't, she does have a Facebook account. I don't follow it, but every once in a while, one of her, posts, I guess will go kind of viral and, I'll see it. But she did post one, that did catch my eye. I wanted to talk about it just a tiny as a kind of a
Sure.
side note. She posted some of her, back in the day, one of the things that they promoted was the sexy women. The channel would, would, promote the show with, and Tracy Helfer became like, the face of Battlestar for good or bad. They had that sex appeal, so they wanted to, grab the viewers. They kind of did that, but they would also, do like photo shoots with the women and maybe have them wear bikinis or whatever, to try to stir up, maybe some controversy or some excitement about the show. And evidently, she went on one of those photo shoots, and she was in bikini and you know. With the other, very skinny, model-esque, co-stars, and I think, and I may be butchering the story, but basically, she was saying that some of the people there, were saying, why is she there? This fat cow, basically.
Oh.
Whereas, so she's, she kind of got mentally damaged from that. Her self image, kind of dragged. And you look at her, she's a healthy woman, but she's also a very beautiful woman. Yeah, and Starbuck is such a strong character. Um, and you really love that, about the character. It just kind of shows you, I guess the mental toil that this Hollywood engine can have on you, even though you're portraying this very strong character. At the same time, you're dealing with all the body issues and all that other stuff as well, and it just really made it very human, kind of aspect, to who she is, and that she's kind of made it through it and it's become comfortable with who she is. And that was basically the story she was saying. But yeah, it's it really gave kind of a human aspect to that. I just kind of wanted to say that.
Well, that no, you're to kind of piggyback on it, you never know where you're going to find yourself in these conversations. But I that's one of the things that like I like to kind of follow these people. They're one of the very few people, celebrities that I would, and I wouldn't call them major, but like I like to see them. I'll occasionally fall into like well, I think they have their own podcast things, and I don't show up for every single
Mhm.
one, but like I'll have one if it recommends it or whatever. But
Uh,
that's the one thing that I enjoy, like which is like when they talk about like kind of like the story behind the story of the thing of like you're so in deep because they're talking about, well, I was doing this. And anyway, it is good conversation and good entertainment all the way around. And it just helps you appreciate what happened. And yeah, I was not connected or tied into the whole thing, but I did kind of get well, any woman really, it's to a certain level, but that was extra special on display, kind of
uh-huh.
thing, like, the thing, like, but it wasn't like it was like Baywatch in space, not at all, at whatsoever, like, that's kind of the thing, and all these characters are given depth, and I do remember her talking, when she was doing a podcast with Katie. I think it was on Katie's show, but it could have been on there. I think it was audio only, so I think it might have been Trisha's. But anyway, um, she was talking about how like how it, towards the end of the show, like as it was naturally coming to an end, like she was
Uh-huh.
like, "Okay, I want my character to be more fuller. I want her to be. I want to explore more avenues of this and that." And they did allow that, but there was also like that. There's also a limitation there too that constrain. Like so. Anyway, so she came into her own as a very good actress. Anyway, never mind. Yes, she is actually beautiful, of course, right? But
Mhm.
she can actually act, and also do these other things too,
Yeah.
like, and all these people can, not just her, all of them. And so, like, when you put them together, like, I can, I love my little side quests, kind of sci-fi and things that only I love that
Mhm.
most people don't. I love that, but like universally, like this is probably sci-fi at its best in the
Yeah.
last 50 years, easy. Like, and
Yeah.
that's not taking nothing away from Star Trek or Star Wars or
Mhm.
what, or nothing, none of that. It's just a completely different take, and it really pulls you in very quickly. Again, I came originally when I did not watch this as much because I didn't understand the depth. I didn't understand what I was looking at because I discounted it because of the TV version. I was like, I never watched. I mean, was familiar, but I was like, it's just not my thing. It's like, but, uh, I'm glad I did see what I did see.
Yeah, and yeah, just to also expand upon that, with what the creators wanted. Yeah, they talked about how there's a lot of cheesecake in original sci-fi with with Leia in the slave outfit in the Star Wars movies, and
Right.
the exotic alien ladies in the original Star Trek with their skimpy outfits. There's sort of like a fetishization of women, what that's okay in sci-fi, that we're okay with that. Whereas a lot of people complained about all the sex that was going on in Battlestar, which is, yeah, to be honest, not that extreme. I mean, yeah, they were talking about, in a regular drama,
Soap
like
opera.
say, yeah, like a LA Law of the day,
Right, 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 right,
there's
right.
it's nothing outrageous as far as the sex, but that was something new for sci-fi at the time, which is not that unusual now. You don't really think about Battlestar, but it did break a lot of different grounds, and kind of it made things normal for future sci-fi. Like you're saying, The Expanse is sort of like the successor to Battlestar. Without Battlestar, would we have The Expanse? But yeah,
No, I
those
don't think
yeah,
so.
there's a lot of corollaries between the 2, and, it really just kinda advanced what a sci-fi could be as far as a TV show. Obviously, the written word, novels are quite different. A lot of times what the screen, is doing is trying to catch up with what writers are doing, with the written word, but yeah, this is a much more intellectual, and they do get into philosophical questions. Oh yeah, there's the original.
Right, right.
But yeah, and also they did have a lot of new actors coming in, but when they were originally thinking about who would be Admiral Adama, they thought of Edward James Olmos when they were thinking about the president. They did think about Mary McConnell. They wanted that McDonald. They wanted those that
Strong.
archetype. Yeah, archetype, that's who they were going for, so they were kind of blown away when they actually got the real people, and they really deliver. They wanted Edward James almost because they were very taken with his uh acting in Blade Runner. They wanted that quiet calm, that unspoken authority. When he says something, it means something. And we didn't even talk about there's him and his son Leodama, and one of
Yeah, yeah.
their relationship as father and son. And I think it's
I
really
Jesus. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's so funny, like, when you start to pull this out,
Mhm.
from the toy box, and then you don't wanna put it back. But
Yep.
anyway, go ahead, go ahead.
But yeah, there's that interesting dynamic of father and son. And one of the things that were really fascinating with this miniseries is they go there with things, when we hear on the news that hundreds of people have died. We kind of lose the fact that 100 people have died. It becomes kind of a statistic, and they kind of play with that in this show too, because at one point they had to shut off the vents, and ends up killing 85 people. And that engineer that's there, that's a great character in his own right. He's really messed up by it because he knew every one of those 85 people, whereas with us it was just a number. And then later on, when Leodama is mistaken as being dead, it becomes much more emotional and like, oh my god, this character died. And it's kind of painting the picture of, yeah, when you know the guy, when it's your son, when it's that, it hits you harder than whenever the unnamed 85 people die. And the fact that they're able to kind of play with that is really kind of fascinating.
Well, like I said, the whole thing, the world building that you get is, I mean, total wipeout. So, it's kind of like the same thing that the rules apply like for pluribus. Like how would you feel? How would you react if like literally everything that you knew changed overnight? Like overnight,
Yeah.
you know, you don't know how you would feel, and how you take that concept um, sci-fi wise and how you deal with it. This is I can understand why people. I'm not going to be there, but I can appreciate how people like the first adult Star Wars would be like Andor, like complex, something other than the Skywalkers. Like
Right.
I get it, like I understand it. But like for me, like that's why Battlefield, like it's just it really is, pretty insane, and you mentioned the father, so I completely forgot about that, like, that that was, like, one just like our this week's Giallo that we did, there are so many different things that it packs in,
Hmm.
um, but not in your face, and only if you decide to pick it up because you're going to be reminded of that because you're going to trip over it again. Like that's the beauty of these things. So binge worthy, absolutely. The first few, whether you're coming in for the miniseries or you're just doing it, one, two, three, or
Hmm.
whatever, um, this is gonna be like I would probably say that this is gonna be more likely to appeal to somebody who has no connective tissue with sci-fi or they're just not that person.
Yeah.
I would be more likely to show them this than something else, than the usual thing. But like
Right.
it absolutely earns its place in the in the halls of Valhalla.
Pantheons. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, Valhalla of fucking sci-fi. You have this, and I love it. And I gotta tell you, like, I don't know about you, but like, I'll just ask this because obviously this is a recommend. We're gushing over this thing. You do a watch through, it gets so deeper and you get to focus on a completely different aspect that you just didn't know that. Anyway, this is like, I don't watch this as much as I should, and I'm glad you recommend it because this is like a beacon call to do that for me. But like just like Mad Men, you rewatch it, like I get something new out of it for something I
Yeah.
love.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things, yeah, you're dealing with these huge sci-fi big questions. It's having fun in that play box that is sci-fi, but it also doesn't neglect the drama, the family drama, the dynamics between these characters. Even though they're this epic
Very sci-fi.
sci-fi, yeah, this epic sci-fi adventure, but that's got a really dark cast to it. But you also had this really meaty family drama. They're going back to the Adamas with father and son. There's like a really interesting scene in the miniseries when they meet up for the kind of reunion. And it doesn't everybody's excited to see young Lee Adama show up, Apollo, and they think it's gonna be a happy occasion, whereas there's this family drama of one of the sons, Lee's brother, dying, and he blames his father for it. And there's a very emotional scene where normally it would be shot with the characters looking at each other and having this back and forth, whereas the way it's shot, Adama is actually um, Admiral Adama can't even look at his son. He's turned away.
Yeah, or he's had, yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
his
go ahead.
and Lee's like, berating him, telling him, all the things that probably Admiral has kind of tortured himself mentally, and it's almost like Lee's sort of like his consciousness being spoken outwards, and he's just you can tell emotionally he's kind of going through it, you know? And, yeah, that's really powerful filmmaking, you know? You don't normally get it, let alone in a television series, let alone a sci-fi show.
Well,
Very, very emotional, yeah.
that and the interplay of, like, what is consciousness, like,
Yeah.
what is real, if it's on a chip, and it's represented and anyway, I'm not gonna do any justice to that. There are people far better than me that have talked about this in a far better way, than I have, but
Absolutely.
I will say, it is absolutely compelling, and the more you see it, the more like this is like pinnacle of sci-fi. Like this is what, like it almost doesn't even matter that it's, the space or, whatever. You could easily replace it. That's how good a thing can be to like where you could literally swap out the thing to a Western or to a horror,
Yeah.
whatever, and you would
Yeah.
still have a compelling thing. In a way, it kind of is horror, but like I'm not a literalist because, like, if you're a literalist, then literally every episode of, like, certain sci-fi shows are like horror sequences.
Right.
That's a different way that's a different genre that is done
Mhm.
very well with, Twilight Zone and whatever. Anyway, this is more, centered on like the opera part, the thing. And like that's what it is. Like that is that interplay and the layers and like wherever you land in on, wherever you like or whatever, like that is you're gonna be served well. And I will say I had a catharsis, Tom, while we're doing this. I realized I don't think I have animosity toward Andor. I just realized it now. I love Caprica, the one that came after this show, and I realized like people didn't pick it up because like it's like, well, all these fucking people are dead. They were like wiped out. Like, what does it matter? Like that's essentially the same thing that Andor. Anyway, so maybe that is why I was like, okay, I'm sure it's good. I'm not going to watch it. I've already been on that. I've been on that ride, and I don't want to go on that ride again.
Yeah. Well, and,
Anyway,
yeah, not
you're very well served.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I've seen all of Battlestar, and not really a spoiler. We won't get into spoilers, obviously, but the end of the series is a bit controversial. People have some issues with it.
Very
I
controversial.
Yeah, I don't I personally don't have any problems with it. I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed Caprica as well. But I can see where, once they were done with Battlestar, maybe they weren't ready to go back into that world, or they weren't happy with the world, how it ended, so maybe they weren't reticent to, pick up the new series or not. But yeah, they're both worth, revisiting. Obviously, I'm in love with the show. I'm in also, so sort of some side notes. We were talking about the actors. I know Grace Park
Parker
Park,
or
and
Park.
then yeah, and then I forget her name. The one that's the engineer's assistant. The youngish looking girl. Anyway, her and Grace. They were
Don't know the series that well. Sorry.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, Nikki Klein, crewman
Okay, right on.
specialist. Kaylin. Yeah, both of them later on, got mixed up
All right.
into that occult, Nixium. I don't know, Nexium. You may have
Boy, I
seen
heard about that.
that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
documentary on on HBO about it. Where they branded people and whatnot. I don't know if they were involved in any of that. I don't know. But I remember watching that documentary, and and then the big surprise shock was seeing pictures of them, and I don't know, again, I don't know how involved they were, but yeah, they they did get mixed up into that, unfortunately. So there's that as well. Also, I wanted to point out, I did when I was originally coming out on DVD. You were talking about maybe getting that Cylon cover,
Mhm.
but they all came out on DVD. I bought all those and and watched them again on DVD. But a few years ago, it came out on Blu-ray, and I picked up this beautiful box
Oh,
set.
wow.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah, that's nice.
one of the jokes about the reason why all the paper and stuff in the show, the quarters are cut off, is that the running joke was that the show was so cheap they had to cut corners. So
Oh,
that's
right.
why the paper. I love that that's kind of representative in this. And then also it comes out in like a little book here, with the pages and whatnot. Kind of hard to
That's
get the
awesome.
disc out, but it's really one of my favorite collections here. And it has both the series and Caprica and the miniseries all together. I don't know if
Oh,
I don't
wow.
think you can still get this. Hopefully, you could get a version where it has everything. But yeah, I'm really happy to have this. I hadn't really gone through it. When I started watching it, this is the first time it came out on HD. Ronald D. Moore does a little intro at the beginning of the miniseries saying
That's
that
funny.
was shot in
I've
HD,
seen
but
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
but whenever it never and it was aired, it wasn't aired in HD, and the DVDs obviously weren't HD. So I didn't realize I'd be watching it in HD for the first time when I started watching these. But we had an extra day. We normally shoot on Sunday. Occasionally, we'll kind of postpone it. So I was happy because I got to watch, like you said,
Extra.
extra episodes,
Same here.
and I'm kind of locked in now. I think I'm probably gonna finish up the series because I got really invested in the series all over again and had a I appreciated it then. I'm appreciating it now. It's one of those things where sometimes when you return to a series, maybe it's kind of lacking the luster. It doesn't kind of hit you as hard as it did before. But this is definitely a show that's hitting me the same way. And you could probably tell because on most of our binge worthy, we hit about the 40-minute mark on our shows, but we've gone a full hour, so
Absolutely.
we've enjoyed it.
Well, what that usually means is that we're probably gonna have a follow-up with this in a few weeks, so stay tuned and we'll see what we come up with, maybe, maybe not, we'll see, but I wholeheartedly recommend this, and once you're hooked, you get in, and it's very easy to get in, and it's also very easy to watch to piecemeal too, so you don't gotta, like, you might get caught, I promise you that, but this is absolutely binge worthy.
Yeah, and I will say this, I don't know how available it is to watch the miniseries online, but you can if you don't wanna take the full commitment for the show, because I know it's a lot of episodes, just watch if you're not sure, watch the miniseries, uh, and if that doesn't hook you, skip the series, but if you watch the miniseries, it does tell a kind of a complete story, so you can watch that and walk away and be happy. But if that miniseries doesn't hook you, I don't think you're human. So
Wow. Cylon. Whatever you
maybe,
say,
yeah,
Cylon.
you might be
Yeah,
Cylon, yeah. Yeah, who's the
yeah,
Cylon? But yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say it kinda tells us the complete story, but there is that stinger at the end, that reveal of who is a Cylon is that really kinda hooks you
well, that's
into the series, hopefully.
that's why you gotta that's why you gotta keep watching, yeah, absolutely, so, yeah,
But yeah, they nicely leave the breadcrumbs to, keep you going there.
absolutely, I've been Mike.
And I'm Tom, so say we all.